A little nonsense now and then is relished by the wisest men.
Hi everyone, welcome to Priority Holder, and today we'll be playing Blue-Black campaigns in the Timeless format. Now this is just sort of a weird idea I had, like what if we tried to play these campaign enchantments in Timeless? So, Disinformation Campaign, when it enters the battlefield, you draw a card, opponent discards, and when you surveil, you can bounce it back to your hand. Intimidation Campaign, when it enters, it drains the opponent for 1, we draw a card, and when we commit a crime, this bounces back to our hand. And so this sort of wacky deck is built around the shell of these. Now these are like grindy, card advantage-y enchantments, but they're pretty inefficient. So the way I tried to like work around that is by locking down the early game with Chalice of the Void. So we could like Chalice on 1 to slow people down. And also include a bunch of free spells like Grief, Subtlety, and Commandeer. That way, like if these cards are like just, you know, obviously not good or like filling up our hand too much, we can pitch cast a bunch of stuff to stay in the game and take things over. And like our threat package is like heavy hitters like Psychic Frog and Orcish Bowmasters. So that's the idea, is to try and like lock down the early game and then grind people out with the enchantments. And yeah, let's start our campaign. I mean, you have to keep this hand. We got both campaigns, and what else do you want? Alright, opponent's cracking a fetch, leading with an Elvish Mystic. So Bowmasters will be really good right here. And gonna go ahead and put that on the bottom. Like we are sort of mana hungry, but we have Sink into Stupor as a land if we need it, or Malakir Rebirth. Let's see how bad things get before we do anything though. And opponent casts Rhythm of the Wild, so I was not expecting this, and as you can see we have priority because we can Commandeer. It would be extremely costly, and so but I'm just trying to rack my mind, like how bad could this be? I eventually just let it resolve because it would be so costly for us to take it. It would do basically nothing for us, but it's very risky. But you know, we can just Orcish Bowmasters down their elf and at least set them back a bit. Alright, so here's Llanowar Elves. Elvish Mystic. And now it makes sense why they have Rhythm of the Wild, because it gives all their creatures haste. And so they haste out 2 elves and cast a Priest of Titania. So they're able to just like turbo out a bunch of mana. So now maybe I should have grabbed that Rhythm of the Wild. So we're keeping up Sink into Stupor right here. Opponent ends up just passing the turn. And then as we crack our fetch, they cast Collected Company. So, I mean, I'm just going to Commandeer this. This seems way too bad to let them have it. And we actually do have some hits off Coco, surprisingly. So I'm going to pitch Intimidation Campaign, because Disinformation seems a little stronger right now. And by some miracle, we're going to hit a Bowmasters and a Fear of Affinity. So we stole their Collected Company, and we get to shoot down one of their elves. So that was pretty incredible. And this remember is all on their end step, so we're still gonna untap right now. And the question is, what do we sink into Stupor? Like we could bounce Rhythm of the Wild or Priest. Like it's tricky because either way it's not a huge setback either way, but I figure just bouncing Priest Titania is just going to force them to just keep wasting mana. It's just such a dangerous card to leave out. It can add so much mana. And so I want to try and get this game over. So we're just going to crash in. Like the opponent is going to do some sort of combo-y Craterhoof finish, you know. So we're going to go ahead and Disinformation Campaign right now just to try and shred their hand a bit. Alright, so they lose some card advantage by having to dump an Elvish Visionary. So that's good for us. Alright, Priest of Titania. Are they going to give it a counter? Okay, so they give it a counter instead of haste. Now, we're going to be able to do the little Disinformation Campaign trick right here. We're going to be able to get a Surveil land to not only like set up our draw, but bring Disinformation Campaign back to hand. So, it almost seems like Chalice is like too little too late right now with like what they have on board, and like I'm not quite, obviously like 1 or 2 would be reasonably strong against them, but anyway, I wasn't quite certain, especially like they're almost empty-handed decided just to hold off for now. Psychic Frog could be good, so we could be more ambitious and lead with different Disinformation Campaign and try and get an untapped land to like play that into Psychic Frog. Attack with everyone. The reason I'm not scared of a Priest of Titania block is that we have Malakir Rebirth to bring back a Bowmasters and finish it off. So opponent sort of sniffed out something like that, but they're dying pretty quickly to our ragtag army. So they have to pitch a Collected Company, which makes me think their last card has to be pretty great. The question is, do we play Frog right here or hold up double Malakir Rebirth? And I think they're so close to being dead, I want to get Frog down here because we could pitch some cards to it and give it flying to help finish them off alongside Fear of Infinity. So that was my rationale. Like, it's a little bit of a shields down moment for us. So we'll have to see how bad things get. Or another Priest of Titania. Means they have a ton of mana. And they have another Collected Company. So this could get ugly right here. Alright, so they have Allosaurus Shepherd and another Priest of Titania. So now that makes sense. Allosaurus Shepherd has like an overrun ability on it. And they're counting their mana, but they just can't muster up enough pumping and attackers, and they pack it in. So if you like seeing Elves get shelved, please Artful Takedown, first mode the like button, and we're on to the next one. I mean, that was a useful campaign thus far. Really awesome strategy by the opponent. I've played Elves before. If you are interested, I'll post that. And so this is tough. So the opponent is a Giganthic Companion. Often that means energy. Since we have like no plays for a while, I'm just gonna grief them right here, pitching a Fear of Infinity. Would love if we could scam, but okay, so it is in fact energy. And the tough thing about energy is that every single one of their cards is super good. So they're not playing bad cards like us. And I mean, these are all really, really good. I think Guide of Souls is probably the strongest though. Because we just have a harder time dealing with flying attackers, and like it just fuels their whole energy plan. Intimidation Campaign seems like too slow. We need something juicier. Like Toxic Deluge should be pretty dang good against them. So we do have that going for us. And maybe this kind of deck should be running more of them. I'm only running 2. Alright, there's Ocelot Pride. Psychic Frog was a really clutch draw, because that's going to allow us to just... well, they have swords in hand, so if we want Psychic Frog to survive at least one more turn, we're going to have to grief them right now. So, but I decide it's probably worth it, and this is tough because if we pitch cast grief, then our source of card advantage, Disinformation Campaign, is gone, and we're just sort of living on a prayer with just Toxic Deluge. So yeah, I don't know, it's tough. They have 2 answers to Psychic Frog in hand, so I'm just going to take the swords and hope to draw something good. It's looking pretty grim though, because this has been a very card disadvantage-y start for us, for like not much gain, and the opponent has the 1 ring in hand and stuff, so it's looking a little bleak at the moment. But we're going to hang in there. Psychic Frog can do a whole lot of work, so... Goblin Bombardment is sort of annoying. That's going to give them a lot of flexibility for, like, dealing with our Psychic Frog. So, that is somewhat nice, though, because Malakir Rebirth can, like, you know, bring the Psychic Frog back to life after it gets hit by Flage, which is presumably going to happen next turn. Alright, so there's land number 3 at least. And there's always a tension of like, do you keep some cards in hand to just pitch to Psychic Frog? Because instead of using Malakir Rebirth, we could keep the land and Rebirth in hand, and that way if they try and Flage the Frog down, we just pitch 2 cards and grow it. But then they can bombard. Anyway, it gets real complicated. Goblin Bombardment has made our life a little more difficult, because they probably would... Well, I guess... that okay, yeah. That's why I didn't do that plan, is because if they hold priority... They can Flage it for 3, then in response to its death trigger, Goblin Bombard toss the Flage. So, it doesn't seem worth fighting that kind of battle. So, Malakir Rebirth seems like the safer thing to do. Alright, so they are going to try and flage down the frog. We have Malakir Rebirth. Wishing we had that earlier to like scam out a grief. And might have been feeling a lot better about this game. But we're going to rebirth the frog. And waiting to see what happens. Alright, so the frog is dead but comes back. And the opponent must have forgotten to hold control because they didn't get to Goblin Bombard didn't get to throw the flage at us. But they did gain life and got the cat token, so this is tough. I decide just to attack in, and they're just going to block. The thing is, it's basically a regeneratable blocker since Ocelot Pride can, from the knowledge they have, it can get in again and then make another blocker, and so they'd rather just deny us the cards. So there was an argument to just using Orcish Bowmasters on the token to try and draw another card. It's a tough situation because they can fizzle our Bowmasters trigger and kill the Bowmasters. So not only is our Bowmasters dead, we also don't get the Orc army. So it's just sort of a nightmare scenario. So this deck does not do well like battling on the board. It's mostly decent about fighting, using hand disruption or fighting a little bit on the stack. This right here is almost effectively game over. It's real tough because let's say we deluge for 2. The opponent has a lot of options. They can just sacrifice the token cat to flip a Johnny and save it from the deluge, and then our frog's too small to like kill a Johnny, or they can just use them to damage Psychic Frog. We're just in a real bad spot. Not only that, but the opponent has like 1 ring in Flage on deck. So just gonna go ahead and deluge for 2. Alright. So the opponent is going to ding us, flipping the Ajani to save it from the deluge. At this point in time, I should have... that was a misplay by me. I should have pitched the card to save the frog. Because we'd at least have a frog in play, though it's, looking pretty bleak against an Ajani right here. But that, that was a misplay by me. So we draw another frog, but it's, Ajani's just gonna make another creature and then shoot the frog and kill it, and that is gonna be unfortunately it. This game, that was pretty lopsided loss, but if we had had like an early Chalice, could have like easily leveled the playing field for us. So it's not as dire in every situation, but that was a tough one. Okay, so opponent is griefing us right here in turn 1. Do they have the scam though? So they're checking out what we have, and they take Commandeer and they fire up a Dark Ritual. I'm waiting for so grief dies, and then they slam Necropotence. That's why they took the Commandeer. That would have been so amazing to Commandeer a Necropotence. But opponent is going super deep here. They go all the way to 3 life. So this is a 17 card Necro right here on turn 1. We've done nothing. We haven't even played a land yet. So speeding through this part, because obviously it just takes forever to execute. There's like a million triggers at every juncture. So the opponent has to choose their 7. Now they will need to gain some life. I'm paying very careful attention to what they discard to sort of know what we're dealing with. Now the opponent is, unless they can gain some life, they're like Necro locked right now. So we play our Surveil land, bin the Surveil land. I mean, we have a pretty good hand if we could actually do anything. That's always the question. Alright, pitch casting grief. Alright, well they're going to steal something else from us. Sure, they take Bowmasters. And they can play Sacrifice, so they're going to add 4 mana. Dark Ritual up to 6. Another Dark Ritual. And I'm like, and then it's Torment of Hellfire, and then I'm like, wait a second, like, this is like not that bad. I mean, we're just going to discard a few cards and like lose some life. Like, I thought we were about to get hit with Tendrils of Agony, so I guess they're trying out Torment of Hailfire as a finisher. Maybe that's... I usually am seeing Tendrils, but the thing about Torment is that it doesn't gain them any life to start redrawing off Necro or Necro Dominance. So, gonna discard... I gotta keep some stuff in hand so we can actually turn this game around. But we lose life for the other options, and the opponent can only draw 2 more cards, and they're gonna have to just hit some sort of life gain spell on those 2, or else they're just toast. Because we have a Disinformation Campaign that's gonna deal 1 damage upon ETB, and we have Bowmasters and stuff. So I'm gonna play the Watery Grave, and the opponent packs. So we did not even cast a spell. Those are the best games. Like these are the kind of games this deck can win when we don't have to cast any spells. So, but that was sort of a funny one. Shocking that in case we end up scamming a Subtlety into play, which we will. So opponent does turn 1 Tamiyo, and we will happily Subtlety. We're going to pitch the other Subtlety. It doesn't seem like we'll need 2 of them at this point. Holding full control here to make sure I can respond to my own triggers. Want to make sure we get the Malakir Rebirth off to make sure the Subtlety stays in play. So feels fun playing like all these free spells and stuff. So we're gonna put the Tamiyo. So the opponent just put the Tamiyo on the bottom, so they must have better things to do. But seeing the Tamiyo, it was crucial to Subtlety it, because now we can just Chalice for 1, and we know it's going to be good against the Tamiyo deck, because Tamiyo herself costs 1 mana, and like stuff like Brainstorm, Faithless Looting, all cost 1 mana also. So this is going to be, yeah. There's the Brainstorm getting binned right now because opponent must be like really annoyed right now with our Chalice. So we're just gonna start crashing in with our 3/3 flyer. Have some 3 mana enchantment threats coming soon. Our opponent passes, so they can have stuff like Bowmasters. So I'm like a little worried about playing like a card draw spell into it and just getting them back into this game. And they could have like mana drains and stuff, so I'm trying to think of what to do. Like, do we play like Fear of Infinity, or do we like play the campaign? Like, I really want to get the campaign in play, but decide, let's just hold up Bowmasters in case they try to Bowmasters us right now. Alright, so they fetch for another land. Let's see what happens. Okay, this opponent's just going to pass. At this point, I'm just going to Bowmasters them, like, let's see what they do. Alright, they're going to counter it. Not a problem. That means the way is pretty clear for one of our other spells. And going to attack in with Subtlety. So opponent's already at 5. Going to play Intimidation Campaign. Maybe should have just played the Fear of Infinity just to threaten lethal next turn. We did get another land though. Alright, opponent plays a land, passes. Another Chalice of the Void. Now we know they have 2 mana spells. We've seen counter spells and mighty mana drains in there and stuff. So instead of playing another threat, I think the safest thing to do is just to Chalice on 2. That locks out some of our spells, but not all of them, and it should lock out almost all their spells. They don't have a Lurrus Companion though, so that's not for certain, but it's going to constrain them and not even let them crack their fetch at this point. So at this point, the game's thoroughly lost, and so the opponent's just showing us what they have in hand right here via getting them all countered by Chalice. So they had another Tamiyo, they had a Deathrite, they have a Reanimate. Those are all great. That's why we play Chalice, is to shut down these hyper efficient decks. Yeah, and they're just going to fetch for to concede in style. So we're on to the next one. So this is such a weird deck, but we could still win games off the strength of Chalice and like free spells and stuff. So let's see what happens here. Inquisition. That's pretty frustrating. Alright, so they're going to take the Frog, leaving Bowmasters. We're running 3 of the blue-black Surveil lands in this deck because they combo with Disinformation Campaign. And Intimidation Campaign doesn't seem like quite what we want. Though, honestly, maybe we should have just kept it, because Yeah, it's hard to say. We don't have a lot of information yet. There's a lot of decks the opponent could be at this point. Like, it's only slightly narrowed down. The basic swamp does mean, like, does sort of narrow things down. So I did know that Bowmasters was a possibility, but I didn't want to, like, we're not really a kind of deck that's equipped to just hold up mana. We're like a tap out deck. So I just played the Bowmasters, but honestly, like, there's a strong chance that they're having Bowmasters right now, and we would rather have our Bowmasters kill theirs, since we have a decent amount of card draw that would get punished. So I'm not attacking with our Bowmasters in case they play Bowmasters and can just trade their army with our Bowmasters. And anyway, it's a little bleak, not bleak, but it's tough to know what to do. So I'm gonna, even though it's like a weaker play, I'm gonna play Fear of Infinity, just because I don't want to run a card draw spell right into a Bowmasters, and then unfortunately they did have it right there. So that is pretty tough, but we at least have a life linker in play that's evasive. So, but Bowmasters are just so dang strong. Maybe I need more subtleties in here to, like, combat Bowmasters. I don't know. The One Ring. Alright, so opponents got ring protection for a turn. Alright, Intimidation Campaign. So I'm trying to think, like, alright, well, the rings can be damaging them, so I could play another Fear of Infinity. Now, as I play these top tier timeless cards in Fear of Infinity and the campaigns and stuff, let me know in the comments, like, do you want me to see me play like a more powerful blue-black frog deck? Not like the typical one. I'll build my own spin, but let me know in the comments if that's something you'd be interested in. It is possible to put good cards in your deck, so I've heard. But yeah, Sheoldred's dinging us. We're gonna send in with the Fear of Infinities, and, like, just sort of, the thing is, like, with Sheoldred plus Ring, like, we just can't keep up with that kind of life gain that they're going to be generating right here. Not to mention, like, we have a lot of card draw in this deck, and they have 2 draw punishers right now, Bowmasters and Sheoldred. So it's just, like, really, really bad situation for us right here. Opponent's just going to casually gain 6 life, no big deal. And they have 2 different ways of punishing our card draw. Sacking the Bowmasters right here. Meat Hook Massacre is a massacre right here. Annihilates our whole board. So it becomes clear now that they're a black devotion strategy, which I've played before. So I'll link a video if you want to see me running black devotion. I might have to revisit it. There's been some new toys recently, so. Well, Toxic Deluge at least is something, but in all likelihood they probably have another Sheoldred given how many cards they've drawn off the ring. But I mean, we gotta try something. So at least all the draw punishers are off the board right now, so we might be able to draw some cards off Disinformation Campaign and Intimidation Campaign. IR First of Lochthwain is a large amount of devotion. And like, is this a Grey Merchant right here? Like, that'll almost surely could, no, but it's another. It's a Sheoldred, which Thoughtseize, and yeah, I'm just gonna pack it in. Like, they have too much. We're super dead right here. So that was a tough beating by like mono black devotion, which I think is probably like a nightmare matchup because they have the highest density of card draw punishers. Now, gain land from the opponent. So that's often a sign of a new player, or at least a player with a new collection. You know, maybe they're new to Arena. So, and they have one of the crime lands, and they just ding us. Now that's the thing, is when you get started on Arena, like, honestly, in my opinion, you're best suited just spending your wild cards on the stuff that's fun to play. Like, you'll get the lands eventually. Like, you can get by with like Evolving Wilds or like common tap lands until you can build up to some wild cards to build that consistency. But you want to start out playing the cool stuff, you know. Usually easier to stick to 1 or 2 colors to do that in the beginning, but you know, people just, you know, they got to start somewhere. So, all right, another land from the opponent. All right, Impetuous Lootmonger. So that's a heist card. So we could have subtletied that to avoid the heist, but decided, like, that's like major card disadvantage for, and we wouldn't really be able to have like an answer for it next turn. So they did get to, they do have to pitch a card to Heist off this one. So, but they took something from our deck. And Heist is choose one of 3 non-lands from us. So like they're guaranteed to hit, and not only that, but get to have a choice. So decide to lead with Disinformation Campaign just to like increase our options and like decrease theirs. Yeah, we are sitting pretty with like a Commandeer in hand and a Subtlety, so like we'll have to see what the opponent's going to try and do to us next turn. Okay, so 4th land from them, and they cast a like super Heist card. So it's an enchantment that lets them Heist twice, and then it does like a 2-life drain anytime they cast one of our spells. So this seems like a perfect card to Commandeer. The question is what to pitch into it. It seems like keeping Subtlety would be like really nice. So we'll see how they like being heisted. We're gonna get to take a look at what they have, and they're sort of an eclectic collection of cards. You know, they're playing what they have. So we're gonna take Roaming Throne because we can name Elemental and get like tons of mileage off our Grief and our Solitude. This opponent crashes in. Now there is an argument for chalicing on 2 first to lock them out, but they have a range of mana values. We've seen 3 and 4 and stuff, so like that's not even guaranteed to be that devastating against them. Not to mention Chalice on 2 would lock out some of our spells eventually. So I decide Roaming Throne is like a pretty safe play because it has Ward 2, so like it very likely will stick around and allow it like for like a devastating Grief follow-up. So we're gonna name Elemental with Roaming Throne, and it's gonna give double triggers for our elementals if it sticks around. So, alright, so it was a Disinformation Campaign they stole from us. So we're each giving each other a taste of our own medicine. They're making us discard. We're stealing cards from their library. It's all good fun. Alright. Now they made a mistake by choosing a creature removal mode with theirs in addition to another mode, but the ward annihilated the spell since they couldn't pay for it. So alright, so we're gonna get to double grief them right here, and that should just basically end the game. Yeah, and they have 2 spells, so we'll just take both of them, and I'm just gonna hold back here. We probably could attack, but alright, Patchwork Banner. So they're gonna strengthen their rogues right here, but we're gonna be able to just pretty effectively take this down soon. Gonna go ahead, so I'm checking to see if there's any 1 mana value spells that would benefit like us for playing a Chalice for 1. We're just gonna play Laughing Jasper Flint to keep stealing stuff from them. Alright, opponent's getting flooded out right now, and yeah, they just pack it in. So, well, that was pretty fun getting to steal, get to Heist deck. So, alright, we're gonna play Surveil Land and sort of need the land, but hoping we don't get hit with the discard spell because then we can whammy them with Chalice. That is a bad sign though. Artifact land from the opponent. So the reason I'm hesitating here is because I'm like, should I Chalice for 0? Though typically they would have just spewed out all the Ornithopters and Mishra's Baubles and stuff. So I decide to Chalice for 1 because it still might stop some of their things, but this is going to be a real tough matchup because the bulk of their deck is going to be stuff like Mirror Enforcer and stuff like that we have no hope of chalicing. So gonna play Disinformation Campaign and hope to draw something nice. Okay, Toxic Deluge is pretty nice. Alright, yeah, and they pitch a Springleaf Drum, so we did slow them down a little bit. Alright, Simulacrum Synthesizer is really bad news. That's just gonna give them free creatures that we can't easily deal with. Not to mention they scryed 2 cards to the top, so not a good sign for us. We're gonna just play Intimidation Campaign here and be very worried. And I decide, you know what? Let's go ahead and Chalice for 0 here because there is a strong likelihood that they have some 0s, though at this point we're more worried about the big stuff. So So there's another artifact land. And we're just bracing for impact here as the opponent counts their mana. Alright, so the opponent does have the Mirror Enforcer, which triggers the Synthesizer. And just like that, they have 11 power on board. So we theoretically have an answer, like in Toxic Deluge, but it's like really bad. Wish that Commandeer was there like a bunch of turns ago to like steal the Synthesizer from them. Might have been able to have a chance at that point. I'm going to Deluge for 7 right here and just try and buy some time. But the opponent has a Metallic Rebuke, which is just going to counter it. So we just paid all that life into it for no reason. And the opponent still has 11 power on board. So not in a great spot. Alright, opponent plays the One Ring. You know, I don't always see Affinity decks playing the One Ring, but I think you absolutely should. Like, it's so strong, and it's like on theme. It triggers Synthesizer, so yeah, we were super dead here, so we're packing it in. So obviously this is not the most competitive deck out there, but I just like trying to see what's possible sometimes, and it is possible to win some games playing campaigns. But yeah, I think Fear of Infinity was far too gimmicky. Like, the idea is that you can pitch them to Psychic Frog and get them back later, but honestly, would probably be better suited if these were like Drown of the Locks or something like that. So, but even then, it's like dubious whether like this is like something you should be doing. But I think there's something here though. Like, maybe just ditch the campaigns and like focus in on like Psychic Frogs and like pitch casting stuff. But there were some like really awesome interactions we can pull off. So I think going heavier in on like scamming in a Subtlety and Grief and like backing it up with like Commandeer, like, anyway, I think that there's something to that. We might be better off just like packing in a bunch of interaction like Drown of the Lock that can pitch to any of our stuff, but like helps us like interact with the board some more. You could see like when I was designing this deck, there's a ton of different directions to consider. There's going all in like the pitch plan by having like blue and black cards, you know, like this. There's like leaves the battlefield triggers like Tameshi, like for like enchantments returning to your hand, or enchantments entering the battlefield like Entity Tracker, taking advantage of that. These are all sort of like clunky. There's like the whole sort of discard looping thing. We only have like Fear of Infinity, but you can put like Sneaky Snackers and like really go wild with like stuff returning, and have discard outlets like Malcolm or Fear of Missing Out, or even Fable of the Mirror Breaker, which can fit the enchantment theme also. So yeah, it's sort of an interesting puzzle, and there's still some more directions you could take it in. So, but yeah, that's the deck. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you want to see even more nonsense, please consider subscribing. And if you're already subscribed, thank you for your support. Your engagement with the channel helps me know what the people want. Thank you.